People come from all walks of life. They all have lives they lead. Any and all are welcome here to come and chat with me.
Hi, everyone. The time difference, time zones can be a challenge when I'm booking interviews. Like today, for instance, it's 8 a.m. for me, and for my guest, it's 12:30 p.m. That's because she's in Newfoundland, which is awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is author Debbie A. Samson. Good morning, Debbie, or afternoon.
Hi, nice to be here.
I'm pleased that you're here. So where in Newfoundland do you live?
I live on the west coast of Newfoundland. Corner Brook is the major city on this side of the island. So I'm about an hour and a half away from Corner Brook, and I live in, I call it the boonies. I'm surrounded by nature. I'm up on a hill overlooking the ocean. It's just beautiful.
It sounds beautiful.
And on earth.
Very good. Now let's talk about your book. Okay. Do you have a copy that you can hold up and show?
I don't have the copy because it's going to be released until July the 2nd. So
Oh, that's awesome. I'll make sure this gets aired before it's released so that, people can look forward to it.
Yeah, I should have printed off like a page or something, but this will give you some idea.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. What is the book about?
The book is about my life. It's my autobiography. So it starts actually from birth, right on through. I'm 62 years old now. So it comes right on to my life at 62. And the book is called A Recipe for, I've just abbreviated, so C-PTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and PNES, which is psychogenic non-epileptic seizures. So it's called A Recipe for both of those illnesses. And I chose that title because if you look at the abuse and the trauma that I've experienced throughout my whole life, it is a recipe for the mental illnesses that I think I had throughout my life, but I just kept pushing it down until 2012. And the gates just flooded. I couldn't push it down anymore.
Wow. So without giving away too much of your book, can you share some of what you went through?
Sure. I lived in an alcoholic home. My father was an alcoholic, a narcissist, extremely controlling, played mind games. Right. You never knew what to expect. We lived in a small community in Newfoundland. And when I was 12 years old, we moved to Ontario, London, Ontario. I was a good girl. I really was a good girl because I had to be good in order to survive and stay out of his way. Grandmother lived with us, so she was my protector. I don't know where I'd be today had it not been for my grandmother. When we moved to Ontario, I wanted to still be the good girl, but it was difficult for a newfie, I'll call myself a newfie, to fit into find my place in Ontario with the children there. I did, however, I remember, and this is in my book, one girl that I really was drawn to. Her name was Liba, and she was Jewish. And I really liked her, and I really liked her family. So I found a new friend. I started school. My father was extremely prejudiced. He would not allow me to hang around with Liba because she was Jewish.
Right.
So he was very controlling. So, of course, as a 12-year-old, I was looking for a place to belong. And I ended up getting involved with people who were a little wild, I guess you would say, certainly not within my father's expectations. So I would stay out late and I was using drugs and things like that. So anyway, I remember he was very controlling. He grounded me all the time, and I started to rebel. And I remember I came home one night. I was supposed to be home at 9 o'clock. And there was I remember that clock in the hallway when you walked into the little entranceway in the apartment. And it was like 2 minutes after 9 on that clock, but by my watch, it was exactly 9 o'clock. And he flipped and he took his shoe and he started hitting me. He's hit me in the back with his hand. I went with his handprints in my back for days. Anyway, being rebellious at that time, we lived on a ground floor apartment. I slit the screens with a razor blade and I ran away. And him and the police came, found me within a little while with my friends in a field. And basically what happened, he said, you take her, we don't want her, and she's just a bad kid. So I was put in foster care. I ran away. I lived on the streets. There was a lot of sexual abuse, and I go into the details in my book. So there was a lot of sexual abuse and a lot of trauma that happened during those years of my life. And I was only 12, 13 years old. Looked and acted a whole lot older. That really left me traumatized. So I'm really giving you a Reader's Digest version. Okay. And then at 14 years old, we moved back to Newfoundland. He was supposed to be a good father. We had, I think, 1 or 2 sessions of counseling. Nothing changed. So I was really stuck in a situation and there was no way out. I remember one time he chased me with a hammer. Everybody in that small community found out then because my friend was with me and we ran out of the house. The police became involved. But I just decided I have to make the best of this and endure it. And at 14 years old, I met my husband. I married him. We're married today. I was 14 years old.
Wow.
I married another alcoholic. Life was good. One of the chapters in my book is called It Was No Honeymoon. And it was no honeymoon. It was horrible. When you look at people who end up divorced, we should have been a statistic. But for some reason, I think we were meant to be together. So I say I helped him overcome his addiction. He's been clean and sober now for 34 years. And then when I became ill, he became my rock. So he's my rock. Then I ended up having an alcoholic and drug addict son. There was a lot of trauma in my life with that. Really traumatic to have a child and go through that. However, my son is 34 years old now, and he's been clean and sober for almost 7 years. He has a little 4-year-old boy. He's a single dad, but he's doing great. I'm a counselor. I was a counselor for 5 years. A private organization, and the first part of that career was amazing, but then new management came in, had new ideas, wanted to do things differently, and I endured a lot of harassment. So so there's my story in a nutshell. And then 2012, 2 years prior to 2012, each year the trauma would, I'll call it rise. It would rise up. I would get sick. I'd come home from work. I'd sit on the bed. I'd talk to my husband. I'd cry and I'd say, I just don't know how I'm going to get to work tomorrow. I just don't know how I'm going to get through this. I kept that up and kept it up for years. 2 years prior to becoming totally disabled, each year I had a month off work. And then I pushed myself to go back to work because I loved my job. I wanted to help others. And each year I did that. But in February 2012, I was on my way to work and in my mind, I just thought, I can't do this for another moment. Like I was exhausted. I was confused. My brain was foggy. I had anxiety. I wanted to drive my truck over the road. I just did not know how to get out. I didn't want to live anymore. But I didn't drive my truck over the road. I went to work and I just went into the office. I had 2 girls working for me then. And I just collapsed into fetal position and said, I can't do this anymore. And I've never done it since.
Wow.
I have a there's horror stories after I got sick, horror stories. Everybody is not professional. Everybody does not understand complex PTSD. I don't think there's even my own psychiatrist, who is amazing. When I started developing the seizures, I had to diagnose myself. So There's a lot of people that do not understand either of these illnesses, but I am very fortunate to gradually have found the right help and support that I need. It was a lot of work, and I thank God that I am a counselor and I have my own understanding and background, because if I didn't, and my heart goes out to the people that don't, I still can't work. I'm still disabled, but I'm a lot more well than I used to be. So I wrote this book because I want to help people. That's my goal.
In writing the book, I imagine it helped you as well, right?
In writing the book, it was extremely therapeutic. There were times throughout writing the book that I had to stop because it became too much. And I thought, I've had a lot of therapy, different therapy over the years. And I thought I had processed a lot of it, but I don't want to give away too much of my book, to spark some interest. But I'll just give you a little example. When I was in Children's Aid Society in Ontario, one of the placements I had was in a group home for all different ages of children. And as they came in, I learned to fit in with them. I had to do what they did, which was mostly act out. In my mind, I didn't want to be that person, but I wanted to fit in. And I remember this one day, I acted out because they were acting out. And they put me in this room. It was completely padded. There was no windows. There was just a door was padded. There was nothing in there. It was just a padded room. When I started writing about that, it just became, I can talk to you about that now without having a seizure, which is really good. That shows I've made progress. But that brought me back to, I think that was the beginning of my claustrophobia. And, at that time when I was writing the book, I contacted Children's Aid Society and said, do you use those rooms anymore? Thank goodness they don't anymore. But that's only one incident. There's many more extreme instances. As I was writing, I just had to stop. My daughter is she's 40 now, and she's an amazing she should be a therapist, because I think she's learned a lot from her mother, and she's done some university courses and things like that. So she understands my illness, which is awesome. So there was many times that if I was here alone writing, I would have to call her, and she's been awesome. And of course, my husband.
Yeah. One thing I have learned, and that's fairly recently, that children who have gone through abuse and trauma, as adults, develop all kinds of issues, right? And if somebody hasn't gone through that, they don't understand those issues, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Because it affects the brain. A child who is traumatized, their brain doesn't develop as other, I was reading an article a little while ago, and what they were saying is you look at the brain of a child who's been traumatized and a brain of a child who's not traumatized. The brains are completely different. Mm-hmm. So my brain developed the way that it should have developed. My body was always stuck in the stress response. Fight, flight, free, because I never knew what was around the corner. So my body was always stuck there. I remember one time having a massage, and the massage therapist said, relax. I just couldn't. My body was always, and you can't live without health effects if your body is in that constant state of tension. So I've had to do a lot of work to get to where I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to some of it, not to the severity of yours, but I certainly can, I couldn't have a massage. I still can't. Like, don't touch me, but it's it is so traumatic. I think. Well,
I just want to interrupt. When because there's been a lot of sexual abuse and things like that, I often wonder, why am I comfortable having a massage? It's really strange. I can understand why some people can't, For me, I find it really relaxing. So, yeah.
Well, we react differently to different things, don't we?
We do. And what one will not work for another. And, we just have to keep trying. Yeah. There's one really good therapy that's helped a lot of people, and that's EMDR. I tried EMDR, but because I had so much unprocessed trauma, it just, because if you talk about your trauma and you haven't processed it, it makes it worse. You re-traumatize yourself. So I wasn't ready for, maybe down the road sometime.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to ask about is I was talking to one of my sisters, and I used to belong to like Toastmasters, and I remember somebody saying to me, you need to step outside of your comfort zone. And I mentioned that to my sister, and she said, and you probably can understand this, we live outside our comfort zones.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Some of us are just there all the time, and we cope with it because that's what we do as human beings. We cope.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm really anxious to have your book out there and to read it myself.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when is it? Sorry, July 12th is coming. 2nd is coming out. But how will, let's just say I want the copy, or anybody that's watching would like to read your book, how would they get the copy of that?
It will be available on Amazon and other places. It's interesting, the distributing process. I honestly haven't learned it all myself. The best thing to do would be probably, I have a website, debbiesamson.com. So that's DebbieSamson.com. I'm also on Facebook. So I'll post all that. So I have my own Facebook page at Debbie Samson, and everything is on there as well. So I have a lot of followers. So if anybody is interested, you don't just join and follow I do blogs as well on my website. So there's different blogs on my website. So I just want to keep helping people. I think that's what I was put on this earth to do. And I just have found a new way of doing it.
Very good. Yeah, very good. So what's the name of the book again? Mention it again, please.
It's called A Recipe for C-PTSD and PNES.
And PNES. Great.
Can I ask you, how did you find me? I'm curious.
I don't remember.
That's okay.
Sometimes what I get is I see on Facebook sometimes friends are recommended friends.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I think that's what it was. And I looked at your name and I saw that you were an author. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to take the chance and see if you'd be interested in being on the show. What I want to do as a talk show host is want to get, like, for instance, I want to see your book out there for people because you want to help people. So this is my way of helping.
Oh, thank you for doing that, Nancy. Great job.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm always so fascinated by the journeys that people's lives take. You know, it is always so interesting in my opinion, anyway.
I think everybody has a story.
Totally. People sometimes say to me, oh, you know, when I invite them, oh, I'm so boring. And I'm thinking, how can it be boring?
Exactly.
Your life is different from mine. So to me, it's fascinating. Well, everybody, I hope you look for this book. And remember, you can contact Debbie on Facebook, Debbie A. Samson on Facebook. When it come out, she'll give you all the any information you need. And I appreciate you watching this show, and I hope to see you again. Until then, everybody, peace out.